Eddie Frederick has got it all. Inspiration, motivation, great advice, and biting opinion pieces as only Eddie Frederick can deliver. Eddie Frederick has got it all. EDDIE-FICATION with consultant human resource development and training specialist Eddie Frederick is powered by GRENADA Cooperative Bank Limited and Tillian Group Country Cold Store.
Co-op Bank introduces e-payments, our new e-banking feature that allows you to make payments online hassle-free. Log in securely with biometric technology. Make recurring payments easier with automated scheduling. Save time by paying your bills online. Transfer money to accounts at other local and regional banks. Send wire transfers on the go to anywhere in the world. Or send money to friends or family using Buddy Payment. E-payments, the swift, simple, and secure way of transferring money. Welcome home.
I want the best for me. So, to be perfect by passing. There's no doubt in my mind that the best in frozen meats and vegetables has to come from the Country Cold Store. Hams, turkeys, sausages, beef, pork, chicken. I just don't know my family is in safe hands. Thank you, Country Cold Store, for being there for us for the past 40 years.
The Country Cold Store, providing the best in frozen meats and vegetables since 1969.
Believe in our strength, we'll stand by you. Protection from all perils, big and small. Trust we get, it's so clear to see. Peace of mind, that's our service guarantee. We look after all our family. Yes, we do at every opportunity.
Continuing Group, underwriters of all classes of insurance solutions for your protection and investment. Live well financially.
We have a special challenge to all who decide to come into the room and be a part of edification. The person making the most outstandingly relevant comment in keeping with our topic is in for a special prize. On the table is a breakfast for two at Oliver Restaurant at world famous 6-star Diamond 5 Diamond Spice Island Beach Resort. Lucky winner must make a reservation and present gift certificate upon arrival at the appointed time to redeem this gift. This will give you a wonderful opportunity to experience great service like you've never experienced it right here in Grenada from a business that is locally owned, locally managed, locally staffed, and locally trained. A true symbol of our national independence, Spice Island Beach Resort.
Eddie Frederick has got it all. Inspiration, motivation, great advice, and biting opinion pieces as only Eddie Frederick can deliver. Eddie Frederick has got it all.
Wonderful.
Eddie Frederick has got it all.
Wonderful, folks. Wonderful. Welcome. Of course, for those of you joining us, remember I told you this promises to be very hot. So my advice to you is to keep sharing, keep hitting that share button so that you can bring as many people into this room as possible to share a wonderful, wonderful program we have in store. Now, this is our 97th independent live session and our 43rd, of course, for 2022. We are living in some times where head crooks, con men and con women have prevailed upon this nation for much too long, with their devastating effects being felt throughout every nook and cranny. Now, into why every year of their leadership, more people were joining the poverty train, while their leaders were enjoying largesse at the expense of these same poor and indigent people who blindly followed them for the little pittance they doled out regularly to them to keep them as followers. From all appearances, their bank accounts may just be sizey today, while most of their followers are left to feel insecure with the change and extremely broke and broken. The What's in It for Me brigade of greedy and vultures, among whom are some that ought to know better, and only for the reason of securing what's in it for them, they followed the gravy train. They ought to now hang their heads in shame when they encounter people who they know are disappointed in them for running behind the looters of Grenada. So today's topic is straightforward. Grenada, the looted island. Looted by those who were put in positions of authority, but instead betrayed the public trust and took their revenues for a ride. Such people, if they were to encounter trial by the local sitting female judge here in Grenada, known for her long sentences, should be given 110 years in jail with a public flogging every weekend in the market square. An example has to be made of anyone who attempted or actually got through to take this nation purse for a ride, whether through dismantling the entire slew of constitutionally provided for offices, mangling the public service and the entire Grenadian civilization with it, enforcing creative ways to siphon the public purse, turning opportunistic sympathizers into enablers and accomplices. All are guilty and should be made to pay. When this nation's youth grow up in a society where they see no consequences for bad behavior in public office, they must gravitate towards the illegal quadrant of life. We must enforce consequences, and I say launch investigations into faith's operation and not a profit organization and not filed any annual returns for the last couple of years and only has one client, the government of Grenada. This is according to revelations made by our new Prime Minister, the best Mitchell. Now, CJs must be thoroughly investigated forensically with a view to getting to the bottom of where is the inventory of stuff used to furnish these 15 parliamentary constituency offices and have them account for every cent they collected over the period that the gang leader hijacked the parliamentary vote, issued this company. Oh, to the looters of Grenada. So you see, Grenada has to be regarded as the looted island. Let's take a little break and we'll come back. We have about six segments this evening because it's going to be tough. I really am promising anybody to soft soak anything here this evening because I tell you, it's just too vulgar what has just been revealed to us.
EDDIE-FICATION with consulting and resource development and training specialist Eddie Frederick is powered by Grenada Cooperative Bank Limited and Tillian Group Country Cold Store.
The strength of views and opinions expressed during edification are not necessarily a reflection or representation of the sponsors and or affiliates of this program.
Eddie Frederick has got it all.
We have a special challenge to all who decide to come into the room and be a part of edification. The person making the most outstandingly relevant comment in keeping with our topic is in for a special prize. On the table is a breakfast for two at Oliver's Restaurant at world-famous 6-star Diamond 5 Diamond Spice Island Beach Resort. Lucky winner must make a reservation and present gift certificate upon arrival at the appointed time to redeem this gift. This will give you a wonderful opportunity to experience great service like you've never experienced it right here in Grenada from a business that is locally owned, locally managed, locally staffed, and locally trained. A true symbol of our independence.
Motivation, great advice, and biting opinion pieces as only Eddie Frederick can deliver. Eddie Frederick has got it all.
Okay, folks, and just to let you know, I usually stop at here at this particular juncture to recognize and pay homage to you, but it's going to be a little long this evening, and if you don't mind, I'll just say welcome to all. Okay, you know who you are, you know where you are, you know that you've been faithful and, you know, a follower of this particular program. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart, but in the interest of time, let's proceed. Welcome back, folks. A thorough forensic investigation needs to be conducted into the sale of the diplomatic passport to that Polish man who seems to want back his money after being released by the new NDC administration headed by the decent Mitchell. We should all demand to know how many more of these people paid for diplomatic passports and at what cost, and where did the money go? We learned recently that such passports were sold at US $150,000. Where are these diplomats to help verify that that's all they paid? Did they only pay US $150,000? And if not, how much? So we can investigate where the rest went, especially as to whom. What legal action can be taken against these nastinesses who went against, binding international conventions on diplomacy to make Grenada resemble a Henry Morgan state? That South St. George constituency bank account needs to be subpoenaed in the investigation to see who withdrew the US $140,000. And regardless of who it is, haul them before the courts to provide answers. We just have to all join in intercessory prayers to seek God's guidance to make sure that that person remains alive, so that pressure and heart attack don't kill them before we can really get some serious and deserving answers. It is my understanding that some people are sweating. Some people are smoking even more profusely and drinking like fish. Let it all hang out there, folks. You do the crime, it is time you prepare yourself to do the time. We have to call for some heads here so the world can take us seriously as a people with a deep desire to clean up our decrepit international image. The old tired and corrupt nastiness with no concept of enough did not know when to stop, and so he persisted in his carryings on at the peril of the reputation of this nation, and thus cementing his legacy as the worst nastiness that ever was allowed to hold the privilege to rule over the majority of you who don't know your rights within a democracy, proving how much you are wanting in your own self-worth to elect time and time again such miscreants to authoritative leadership positions. Let us for a moment turn our attention to character with a view to understanding it once and for all. Folks, you must not be a character. You must have character. I remember explaining to you time and time again that character is who you are, while reputation is what others think of you. Interestingly, none of us has any control how anyone thinks of us. Those two words, therefore, must never be used interchangeably because they do not connote the same meaning. Other people are fully entitled to what they think of you. That's not your business. What you must realize is that their thoughts of you reflect who they are and at what stage of their own development they are at. All you've got to do is to remain with consistency who you are, and they will eventually be converted when they realize over time that what they think is really a reflection of them and not you. Do you know how many converts I have made just by my consistency of being matter-of-factly and not being on the market for friends? Someone recently told me that even the way I walk and move around proves what I say, and that people can see that I am a no-nonsense person. Touché to that. It was Plato who said, when people speak ill of you, live so no one will believe them. I have two small and selective social gatherings that I would attend as often as they would convene. Interestingly, and easily noticeable is the genuine camaraderie that permeates the entire atmosphere when we convene. True and honest relationships have developed over the years, and the bonds are so strong that no one of these gatherings feel the need to look over his or her shoulder to speak. Frankness is the order of the day, which makes for total lightness at the end of every interaction at events. Nobody is either at this particular gathering, any of them, feel the need to speak ill of anyone. And so issues are discussed, jokes are made, and genuine experiences shared. I have been to many other gatherings in the past, and 3 or so days later, someone who was in the gathering can call me to tell me after I left what this one said and what that one said about me. They just never see me return to any of their gatherings. Guess some of them are listening now and would finally come to the realization, that's why he doesn't come back. And that's why he doesn't accept our invitations anymore. I wonder who in the gathering told him what I said, boy. No wonder he's so short with me when he sees me and we exchange pleasantries. Folks, too bad for you. Even people's brains were looted by the gangsters and nastinesses who posed as government over Grenada, the looted island. Because indeed, Grenada has been a looted island.
EDDIE-FICATION with consultant human resource development and training specialist Eddie Frederick is powered by Grenada Cooperative Bank Limited and Tillian Group Country Cold Store.
The strength of views and opinions expressed during edification are not necessarily a reflection or representation of the sponsors and or affiliates of this program.
Eddie Frederick has got it all.
We have a special challenge to all who decide to come into the room and be a part of edification. The person making the most outstandingly relevant comment in keeping with our topic is in for a special prize. On the table is a breakfast for 2 at Oliver's Restaurant at world-famous 6-star Diamond 5 Diamond Spice Island Beach Resort. Lucky winner must make a reservation and present gift certificate upon arrival at the appointed time to redeem this gift. This will give you a wonderful opportunity to experience great service like you've never experienced it right here in Grenada from a business that is locally owned, locally managed, locally staffed, and locally trained. A true symbol of our national independence, Spice Island Beach Resort.
Inspiration, motivation, great advice. As Eddie Frederick deliver. Eddie Frederick has got it all.
Lovely. Welcome back, folks. Folks, when a man or woman comes to the table of life with a deeply flawed character, such person is usually the first to threaten to bring others up for calling them out. Such flawed characters usually throw the line of, "Can you prove it? Bring the evidence." All I have to say to such flawed characters, when a wife tells a man emphatically she wants to divorce him because he's cheating on her, he has to be a fool to challenge her to prove it. Good divorce lawyers and even judges who preside over many divorce cases could bear me out on this. When the woman is so emphatic, she usually has the evidence because she would always present same only in the right place, a court of law, to support her case for total separation. So when the dirtiness, because that is all you can refer to people like that, by their right name, and his band of brigands, we all just got rid of, want to talk about this government has a leadership that is a joke. He and his thrashed team must remember it is that same joke that unseated them on June 23rd. This leadership must be a joke for them because they are not using their positions to thief. This is going to be one of the 3 times in our post-revolutionary period that Grenada gets an opportunity to breathe easily and not to worry about a power-hungry despot interfering with everything. Could you imagine any member of the police force wanting to make it big and get promotions would defy orders coming from the legitimate commissioner of police because they have orders from on high to do otherwise? No wonder the force today resembles what it has deteriorated to become, a lawlessly inclined mirroring of the dirtiness himself. A very strong for to hold of an artist that is supposed to be sacrosanct, but because of the low caste of totally disrespectful individual whose very character is so flawed, we ought to treat him with disdain and ultimate contempt. Grenada's youthful population must know that this is not the type of person you emulate, but you emasculate and relegate to the dustbin. The last part of their poorly constructed recent response by press release, which indicated them to be contemplating their legal options in regard to Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell's revelations at the recent town hall meeting, is weak and telling. The script of this degenerate of a politician remains the same from the time he started in post-revolutionary politics to the present. Little does he know that times have changed, and so too should he, if he wants to be taken seriously. These veiled threats of legal action don't hold anyone's attention towards fair anymore. Your litigious nature has never worked for you and will never work. A retired judge once told me, before his passing, God rest his soul, that he has never seen a man who is more concerned with what people think of him as this idiot who does not realize that properly educated to just ordinarily sensible people can see through him. That was so powerful. He can be seen to be spiritually evil just by focusing on his very eyes. Threat of legal action may have felt heavy when he had a tight grip on state power, but that perception is weakened and rendered useless by the lack of such overall power today. The real reason for such threats is to get the weak, apart from mostly bought and paid for local media, to stay away from publishing PM Deacon Mitchell's utterances any further. He would succeed with that when it comes to the several of them which are shabbily led and otherwise just grateful for their funding when largesse was sharing between June 20th, 1995 and June 23rd, 2022. But he surely will not succeed with people like me and the one or two other individuals of strong commitment to this country. Judging from his track record to lose cases in our courts, he's not serious about taking anyone to court. All this nastiness wants to do is to get them, the media, to respond the way he wants them to, which is to zip it on the real issues. Goodly folks, allow me to dispel whatever myth you were made to believe in, that a court of law can actually pronounce you innocent or guilty. That is not the responsibility of the courts at all. You are either guilty or innocent, and interestingly, you know the truth. Relying on the absence of evidence and proof and believing that you are innocent is one of the biggest mistakes guilty people have been making time and time again. In the realm of the universe, you would be made to pay for your persistent dishonesty. Karma never loses an address, and therefore, when your deeds catch up with you, you will be made to pay. A court knows that the realm of guilt or innocence is for a higher being. And that is why the words not guilty are used and never the word innocent. The courts are telling you, therefore, that you and your conscience are on your own. If one's evidence, in the absence of having witnessed a crime, turn out to be weak, listen to this carefully, folks. The court will always prefer to let a guilty man go than to hang an innocent man. Weak evidence leaves the door open to doubt. Again, if that person who has been let loose on such technicality is freed, he must not feel fresh and new to the point where he comes out saying to the top of his voice, shrouded in confidence, "And I told you all I was innocent." The court never pronounced you innocent. The court pronounced you not guilty because of insufficient evidence. At the end of the day, he knows what he has done, and he has to live with it on his conscience every single day. The same line of "you better have proof and evidence to back up your accusation," as regularly said by the accused, is becoming a road march in life. We have been hearing this since the shipping agents caught one back in the 70s with his hand deep in the cookie jar, and he was made to sign with his own signature, agreeing to repay the looted sum. That particular development back in the 70s tells all of us who this person was back then, likely to have been and still is up to this day. That same old thief, that's all. The only difference is that such individual would have been careful not to have his signature on anything that would incriminate him in the future. And so unsuspecting enablers and accomplices may just be the ones to be caught and take the fall. But I am all for examples to be made of any and all of them. I don't know if any of you know, but within the last just under 30 years, as high as over 70% of cases in the 8-member OECS Supreme Court under the subject of public administration have been from Grenada, most, if not all of which, lost by the government and costing taxpayers in excess of $40 million today. Ask yourself, who presided over these governments over those years? And you would see a Drake who had absolutely no respect for law and order. Yet for all, many of you continue to support this gangster to rule over you. Grenada has that troubling and disturbing history under Keith Mitchell and his brigands. The judiciary, which is a co-equal arm of government, has been shunned by this nastiness over the years, as if he thought he was running a business called wrongthings.com. Imagine the judiciary, which is supposed to protect the people of Grenada against the might and power of the state, was totally ignored and sidelined. And a lot of you, by your silence, didn't even realize you were supporting that. No wonder that for the most part, the Chief Justice's latter tenure, she appeared to want to have nothing to do with Grenada, coming here for the first time in 5 years to deliver a lecture of the Grenada Bar Association and seemingly looking gleeful to be in Grenada at last. Did you remember how she laughed when a member of the public got up to ask a question and prefaced it by saying, "We did not have a proper government in Grenada before June 23rd. We must learn to listen for what people do not say, folks. I want to put it another how, in case you did not understand me. The greatest number of judgments when it comes to cases brought against a government in the OECS, with the courts ruling against the government, have been from Grenada. That tells you that before June 23rd, 2022, the state of public administration was not good at all. And that is why you have so many misfits put in place of independent thinkers who would have stood in the way of the administration doing their own thing. And to avoid that, they were unceremoniously removed without due process at a high cost. This started way back with Richard Duncan, Merrill Forsyth, Julia Lawrence, Nolan Murray, Gemma Bain Thomas, etc., etc., etc. Their replacements were all enablers for the most part, who should be tried for whatever crime they charged their master with against the state. Due process should be entered into to right position these wrong pegs in square holes with a view to cleaning up the service of its wanton lack of people with capacity, capabilities, and competence. Could you imagine the unsuspecting getting caught up in being besides themselves to accept appointments, to act in leadership positions, and are so consumed by the thought of being in the position, they never stopped to be honest with themselves and say, but no, wait now. I don't have the capabilities nor the competence for such positions. I will have to first prepare myself. And since I am not yet at that stage, I will have to respectfully decline. But that level of decency never resides within them. No, they wanted the position too badly. And so that is why I strongly recommend, if you see their signature on any incriminating document regarding state funds being swindled, jail them too. They should be made to understand the weight of the position they so craved without being qualified for same. In the meantime, those who are hopelessly incompetent and stand out like tits on a bull within leadership positions in the service, and who are in acting positions and have not been confirmed by the party they liked, send them back to their substantive positions. This looting of Grenada is taking place in too many different forms. And that is why I submit boldly, Grenada, the looted island.
EDDIE-FICATION with consultant human resource development and training specialist Eddie Frederick is powered by GRENADA Cooperative, Bank Limited, Antillian Group, Country Cold Store.
The strength of views and opinions expressed during edification are not necessarily a reflection or representation of the sponsors and or affiliates of this program.
Eddie Frederick has got it all.
We have a special challenge to all who decide to come into the room and be a part of edification. The person making the most outstandingly relevant comment in keeping with our topic is in for a special prize. On the table is a breakfast for two at Oliver's Restaurant at world-famous 6-star Diamond 5 Diamond Spice Island Beach Resort. Lucky winner must make a reservation and present gift certificate upon arrival at the appointed time to redeem this gift. This will give you a wonderful opportunity to experience great service like you've never experienced it right here in Grenada from a business that is locally owned, locally managed, locally staffed, and locally trained. A true symbol of our national independence. Spice Island Beach Resort.
Inspiration, motivation, great advice, and biting opinion pieces as only Eddie Frederick can deliver. Eddie Frederick has got it all.
Wonderful, folks. And let me just tell you, come on, hit the share button and let's get things moving. Too many people, we don't want people to miss this in terms of the opportunity to become aware of the nastinesses that they had around the precincts of power in this country for much too long. And we wake up now, we have to stay awake. So these nastinesses and dirtinesses never return to the precincts of power in this country again, in every form. From all parents, folks, we didn't have a government here. We had a group of bandits enabled by the greedy and vultures of our society. I really have to get on with presenting the remake of the biography of a thief, so our young people could see why they ought to have no respect for anyone who was a known thief, whether in high office or low. Many of our nation's young people were literally made to believe they don't have to work hard because nothing more will come. Just show up, collect your $800 to $1,200 per month as an imani, and is that. I am sure that most of the unambitious youth used to watch the ambitious few with disdain, especially when they ended up converting their internships into gainful, solid employment. Especially as these same unambitious ones would have tried with special zeal to exert peer pressure on them by asking them, what are you doing all of that for? When you and I know there is nothing else to come out of this. I've told you over the years that this nastiness would never even be found to be making a mistake to do anything good. Therein lies the consistency of this dirtiness to remain in power. If at all anything he did appear to be good, look out. It isn't, because nothing he did was ever coming from a good place. Everything he did was about the vote and him sticking around to cover his tracks and get more. How much was enough? Such greedy miscreant has absolutely no concept of enough. Those of us who were brought up in poverty, but with decency, and who matriculated into decent citizens today, could remember the concept of enough being drilled into us as children. When you were given your meal as a child, and you liked it so much and it finished too fast, you were hopeful for more, but there was no more. You were simply told you had enough. Your mother was exposing you to contentment, since there was nowhere else more was to come from. How many times you remember being told you had enough, no more? That sense of enough did not evade us who took in the training. You will get a serious licking if you stamped up and screamed just because you wanted more and there was no more to come. When you see some old thief in our society persisting with their thieving ways, you wonder to what end? How much is enough? This brings me to the consistent criticism I have stated regularly for many years. Why so many revolutionaries, whom some of us respected highly, ended up joining the looters to loot this country? What a disappointment. Look at how many of those so-called decent people, or rather so we thought of them, who joined the nastiness and ended up being absorbed into the culture and way of the nastiness, and who when they leave have become tainted and totally damaged goods. Sad indeed, for the nastiness has a way of turning good people from the time they join with him into guilty just by mere association. I am heartened to see the various spins so many members of the general public, both locally and in the diaspora, presented on the revelations that came out of our spanking new government's town hall session last Monday night. Wow. To begin with, it was lovely to see most of the cabinet members, to include most of the elected members of parliament on the NDC's ticket, present. It was again heartwarming to see and feel their vibes of togetherness and teamship. We can see this group is made up of people who appreciate each other. The way they were dressed, their deportment and conduct during the entire event was quite a treat to behold. This is in direct contravention to the stale old farts that wanted us to get accustomed to them and them alone. It was so refreshing to hear the decent Mitchell articulate with certainty just a couple of evidence-supported transgressions of the previous group of thugs and gangsters. which represent a tip of the iceberg with lots more to come, believe it or not. Could you imagine that over the years, an estimated total of $40 million in judgments against the government of Grenada still remain unpaid, helping to swell the public debt? What is frightening is the total of $34 million in contracts awarded to box drains and what have you in the town of St. George within an election year with very little to show for it. Where did all that money go? Who is responsible for this mass squandering of our scarce resources? I understand that this money could have been used to fund resurfacing of our island's tattered roads from Point Celine to Grand Roy, and we would surely have had something good to show for $34 million spent. Forensic audits need to be done of the spending of such large sums of money, and regardless of who is caught in the net of this investigation, they need to be brought before our courts and face the full extent of our punitive laws. We should start publishing the names of the so-called contractors who received contracts to carry out these jobs with a view to allowing our nation to see who eat our food in the few months. And they too need to be investigated thoroughly to see if they gave value for money. If found wanting, the full extent of the law needs to be showered on them like a ton of bricks. It is high time we make examples of these people, folks, who looted the state. And that is precisely why I maintain Grenada has been a looted state indeed.
EDDIE-FICATION with consultant human resource development and training specialist Eddie Frederick is powered by Grenada Cooperative Bank Limited, Antillian Group, Country Cold Store.
The strength of views and opinions expressed during edification are not necessarily a reflection or representation of the sponsors and or affiliates of this program.
Eddie Frederick has got it all.
We have a special challenge to all who decide to come into the room and be a part of edification. The person making the most outstandingly relevant comment in keeping with our topic is in for a special prize. On the table is a breakfast for two at Oliver's Restaurant at world-famous 6-star Diamond 5 Diamond Spice Island Beach Resort. Lucky winner must make a reservation and present gift certificate upon arrival at the appointed time to redeem this gift. This will give you a wonderful opportunity to experience great service like you've never experienced it right here in Grenada from a business that is locally owned, locally managed, locally staffed, and locally trained. A true symbol of our national independence. Spice Island Beach Resort.
Inspiration, motivation, great advice, and biting opinion pieces as only Eddie Frederick can deliver. Eddie Frederick has it all.
Yes, folks, welcome back. And for those of you just joining, let me say welcome to you too. A lot of you old teeth in our society are very ashamed that someone with a platform like the one I have happened to be so brave to come out as boldly as I do and be blunt and vulgarly frank, while many of you elected to be silent and others chose to join in the pillage, ransack, and rape that this island endured, as it were. Just Wednesday last, someone called me to tell me he overheard someone who listens to me religiously cussing and getting on about this so-and-so Eddie Frederick, who do you think he is? Come and talk so loud and outlandishly like that with them kind of things he'd say. In fact, he wished someone would lick him down and shut him up once and for all. The Good Samaritan messenger even went as far as to provide some evidence of the man's utterances. It is quite obvious that the greedy are beyond the verge of upset, that their apple cart has been overturned, and there is no more feeding from the free trough underwritten by the nastinesses and dirtinesses, bad spending state money. If you want to know how smashed this civilization really is, just go and ask employers about the talent pool they have to work with, and you will find out. I remind you that the average school life of any person is 12 to 13 years. If you check from 1995 to 2022, you will get 2 generations of young completing their education cycle under the tenure of Keith Mitchell-led NNP bad administration. What you have as a result? A mangled couple of generations from an education system we could have absolutely no faith in. Many of these said young people went through the local education system, and their favorite subjects on the timetable seemed to have been break time and school over. Imagine going through the entire primary school life, hopeless and hapless, and leaving without being able to write their names, far less to pick their names up on the ground if they were to see it somewhere. Yet for all, they went through that entire level of the education system. Don't talk about those who made it through the secondary school level, all through to Form 5. And when they leave, as the young people say, nothing. What is worse is that they gravitate to the world of work, only to realize they cannot get anything constructive to do, as a few of their peers who drifted off to college and later university, and when they return, they land better jobs and are on their way to a better future than these associates who had similar opportunities to matriculate further in their life, but who elected to remain at the back and can't hold down a proper job today. These same poor choosers who have been trained to want to sit by every successful pairs. They proceed to work with resentment for those whose hard work and sacrifice caused them to be enjoying a higher standard of living and quality of life, and rightly so. Those unfortunates, you can't call them anything else, who elected to remain in the back with their lives when they finally get a job, feel they are entitled to a salary increase just because the cost of living went up, instead of realizing that an increase in salary is related more to an increase in productivity. They tend to forget which master they ought to serve with a measure of loyalty and enlist their own mercenary-like bargainers to come and terrorize their employers for a raise of pay, with absolutely no care for the exogenous nature of the costs of operating a business. I'm told of a particular woman in the service who operates a shop for the most part on a daily basis, and who has a substantive job in the service and who is never at work. And when her direct report questions it, they were told, leave that alone. So this woman is allowed to rape and pillage the state, aided and abetted by you-know-who, just for her vote. That crap must stop, and such woman must be made to account. She should be dismissed ab initio. The current new administration has a lot of cleaning up to do. The entire public service needs to be reformed, and concentration needs to be on building capacity. All the little tin guards running around the public sector, who all of a sudden know their rights when the man who wronged them the most is no longer around, must be right positioned indeed. I repeat for emphasis, the entire public sector must be reformed before the service could be ready to be an integral part of the level of transformation this country so badly needs and deserves. It is absolutely no secret that the last administration has done and why they did it. No secret at all what the last administration has done and why they did it. If they create a parallel service, cut away at the knee the existing public service, they can have their way to do what they want. And that is precisely why the police force resembles something that needs revamping altogether. When you would have anyone from constable to just below the rank of superintendents, not to mention to include some superintendents, being in regular and direct touch with the chief gangster of this country, it tells you Grenada was transformed to his personal wrongthings.com business. We now have a chance to change that, and we should aggressively push all the miscreants back while we pursue much needed transformation agenda to take Grenada meaningfully forward, minus corruption and any form of nastiness that some of the new consultants who evolved over the last 10 years in particular want to slip through the cracks to regain some form of relevance. Push them back and let all of them gather and congregate under the broken down greenhouse, where all the crooks, con men and con women usually gather, and rightfully so. Let us change Grenada from the looted island, please. Let's take our break here and come back for our final segment. Folks, hit that share button. Let's get some more people into this heat.
EDDIE-FICATION with consultant human resource development and training specialist Eddie Frederick is powered by GRENADA Cooperative, Bank Limited, Antillian Group, Country Cold Store.
The strength of views and opinions expressed during edification are not necessarily a reflection or representation of the sponsors and or affiliates of this program.
Eddie Frederick has got it all.
We have a special challenge to all who decide to come into the room and be a part of edification. The person making the most outstandingly relevant comment in keeping with our topic is in for a special prize. On the table is breakfast for two at Oliver's Restaurant at world-famous 6-star Diamond 5 Diamond Spice Island Beach Resort. Lucky winner must make a reservation and present a gift certificate upon arrival at the appointed time to redeem this gift. This will give you a wonderful opportunity to experience great service like you've never experienced it right here in Grenada from a business that is locally owned, locally managed, locally staffed, and locally trained. A true symbol of our national independence, Spice Island Beach Resort.
Inspiration, motivation, great advice, and biting opinion pieces, and only Eddie Frederick can deliver. Eddie Frederick has got it all.
Good. Folks, as I told you, this is going to be my last segment. So, let's get some last heat here, folks. You know, I submit that although we cannot force someone to hear a message that they are not ready to receive, we must never underestimate the power of planting a seed. As a result, consistency and persistency over the last 37 years have caused many a person to meet me, to repent, as it were, about how they used to feel about me criticizing and thought it was for the sake of criticizing. What a pity it took them so long to finally see the characters I have been warning them about for the low life they really are. I get this every day, folks. The truth is, I really don't care, because the negligence of the enlightened has caused millions to be swindled, wasted, embezzled, and just downright stolen from unsuspecting masses between 1995 and June of this year, for the most part. So many others are having the famous aha moments so many years later. And are now saying, no wonder these people did not want to leave office. Too little, too late. On top of which is an international recession the effects of which we have absolutely no control over, and we have not yet started to really feel. Justice seekers in Grenada over the wanton disregard for accountability and proper public administration by the gangsters who were recently removed democratically at the polls of the June 23rd, 2022 elections. Be aware that when these goons cannot defend their depraved actions and culture to cheat, skim, and siphon from the people of Grenada, they will start attacking you. Grenadians on the side of justice, continue your call for them to be brought to justice, regardless of how much mud they attempt to sling at you. It is the usual custom of others who, when they cannot match wits and intellect, they sink to the comfortably low drain level to hurl insults at you. Ignore them and remain consistent in showing your disdain, as you will eventually win more converts over by your reason. You must pity the perceived dumb and ignorant who insist on following the nastinesses that kept them poor and vulnerable, and show them some love and compassion. The same dirtinesses are the ones we have to bring to justice for mangling them and beating them into total submission and total poverty and depravity. This is a sure reason why we have to advocate for jailing the perpetrators of the wanton duncification and pauperization of our poor and vulnerable, while posing as loving and caring for them. Bundle of frauds. There is a certain conversation, folks, listen to this carefully, that was overheard between the chief thief and a trusted person, which in due time will be revealed. In fact, when the trusted friend was approached with an almost verbatim conversation, the trusted friend got very nervous, pulled the person in a corner to ask him, "Where you get that from, boy?" That was enough to confirm the report as true as gospel. As I said, it will be revealed in due time. No amount of threats to sue will cower me into silence. After all, any ensuing legal action would have implications for the trusted person spoken with on that issue by the chief thief, who would have a vested interest in defending their good name. This would seriously mean throwing the chief thief completely under the bus. The rat trap assembly of the current Public Service Commission's term is rapidly coming to an end. And interestingly, a cohesive team is planned for its replacement. I really admire how closely this current administration is able to hold things close to its chest. Not a hint of who these members are. The same way they gave absolutely no hint to the relevance seekers as to who the Labour Commissioner is likely to be come Monday morning. After the replacement PSC is announced, one can only pray and trust that good order will begin to be restored to the service once more. Due process will prevail, and all the round pegs in square holes and the square pegs in round holes will be right positioned, with all the misfits being put in their places to function at their real levels, much to the breathing of a sigh of relief of the public service once more. After which, all we can trust for is a return to the days when merit will become the order of the day. Our people need to understand that the wanton act of dismantling of our entire public service by this ordinary nastiness, that your negligence, let alone your refusal to pay attention to, caused to run amok in and over Grenada from 1995 to June of this year for the most part, cannot be corrected in one fell swoop. It will take time. If you know of anyone who used to collect free money from the public service and not work, report them post haste. If you know of offices in the service where people used to congregate and workers plaiting their children hair and just having a good old time, like if they are in their yard at home in their various villages and getting paid every month, report them. If you know of any permanent secretary who these things were reported to and they did nothing to correct same, report them too, as that is a clue as to how unable they are to manage any government department. If you know of any hostile old beast-like creatures who've been rough and tumble with members of the public, and no matter how many times complaints were made on them, absolutely nothing has been done to correct same, report them too. We have a lot of cleaning up to do, I told you. You don't have to be worried about the workers paid mercenaries. They will be taken care of, as they never win any cases when they reach to court anyway, because of how poor their cases are. Hence the reason why they would love to have an adversarial relationship with the champion lawyer who is now in office as Prime Minister in and over Grenada. Stay firm and remain positive always. Remember, positive energy activates constant elevation and blessings. It is time we take Grenada back completely from its looters and put things in place to prevent them from ever holding public office again. They, together with their agents of misery, are trying all they can to see if they can take the wind out of the sail of the government on championing the commencement of the payment of the court-awarded pensions for all those Grenadians who earned this right that was taken away from them in 1980 or thereabouts. They start to wonder if interest will be paid on it and whether the government will tax it up to the just before 2018 period, when a law was passed to remove taxes from pensions. All the time, qualified pensioners were not getting and sinking into abject poverty. Now they get a government serious about making payments. They hired mercenaries, opposed to the successful corporate lawyer turned victorious politician, and they want to make demands. Imagine these same people who were silent under the inferior dictator's reign. All of a sudden they find their tongues and are coming out of the woodwork to make objections and demands. How shameful. I only throw my corn. Whichever fowl come, they are on their own. But my corn is steeped in gramaxone, so be careful about eating it. It is stands like these that need to be taken so all the goons and mercenaries would know they will not only get pushed back by the government, but from conscious patriotic Grenadians too. Our youth have been told time and time again that they are the leaders of tomorrow, and the politicians of that low caste of people, that ilk of our immediate past leaders, ensure that that tomorrow never comes. All youth should be telling those expired politicians that the tomorrow they have been talking about is today, just like the NDC campaign advised them throughout the recent campaign. We live on an island today where our young women, upon attaining puberty, cannot afford sanitary pads, but many of our hand-picked public servants have computers on their desks that they do not know how to use. We live on an island today where our leaders who preside over our health sector have no faith in the health sector. When they are sick and family members are sick, they run away to seek treatment in other Caribbean islands that are more able, or the US or even Canada. We live in an independent state where over the years, even our political leaders have no faith in our education sector. They bring onto us what they call universal free primary and secondary education, but never dare take their children to those schools. We live in a country where we claim agriculture is the backbone of our economy, but we refuse to use technology to produce proper crops. Our people are dying younger than they were dying 30-odd years ago. I profoundly submit to you that corruption is the source of all these maladies. I have been victimized for taking a strong stand against corruption since the 90s. The corrupt and all the nastinesses we have been turning a blind eye to in our midst, that have many of you today eating the bread the devil need, while they make off with their presumed loot. Isn't it interesting that they were not bright enough to save food and his God soon be parted indeed? What must Grenada do going forward? Since the realities of the world have fallen on us like a ton of bricks, with hardly anywhere to turn for relief, are we going to gain a proper Grenada by mere pronouncements? I think not. We must change ourselves. We must change our behavior. We must change our behavioral DNA so that we are not attracted to that which is not the good, bad, and the ugly anymore. And that we no longer will be attracted to dirtinesses and nastinesses to lead us. My messages have been the same for years, and therein lies my consistency in pointing out ways to stay away from corruption and the corrupt. The question is, will we continue to say with our mouths that which we do not believe in our hearts? Are we going to wait for outsiders to tell us what we should do, which is what we ought to have known we should have been doing and have done? The major question is, are we prepared to sacrifice our lives for that which is good and right? Are we prepared to roll up our sleeves and meet the poor, desperate, and oppressed and give them a helping hand? The question is, are we ready for the throne and ready to take the bull by its horns and ignore the perpetual failures who have been known for years to seek relevance through attacks on the new government when they were totally silent on the oppression and nastiness of the last administration? The question is, are you prepared to join the brigade to protect this new well-meaning administration against such nastinesses and their distractionary tactics? Look at us as a people, just 2 years shy of observing half a century of national independence. And we have allowed ourselves to be corrupted in our morals and in our ways by the lowest caste of individuals who slipped into the cracks that our omissions created. And many of you continued in the past to make a mockery of democracy, to vote them in time and time again. We say enough is enough. We are making every effort to clean up Grenada, so none of these dirtinesses and nastinesses can stand a chance of being viable to succeed after entering our political arena in the near future, medium and long term. to the point where we can all say, never again will we allow Grenada to be looted. Folks, I am in. I am out. I am gone. See you next week, God willing, for regular programming. Until then, stay safe, stay well, remain lifted. And for all of you joining, please, thank you, thank you, thank you. God, continue to share so that a lot who may not have been, it might have not have been convenient for them tonight to join the live, they can subsequently join it. We're going to cut it up and share it as usual. So take good care of your wonderful selves. Okay, have a wonderful Sunday and prepare yourselves for a productive week. Remember, things have changed and we too have to change how we do things so that we can plug in and contribute meaningfully to taking this place forward. Peace and blessings, folks.
EDDIE-FICATION with consultant human resource development and training specialist Eddie Frederick is powered by GRENADA Cooperative Bank Limited and Tillian Group Country Cold Store.
Co-op Bank introduces e-payments, our new e-banking feature that allows you to make payments online hassle-free. Log in securely with biometric technology. Make recurring payments easier with automated scheduling. Save time by paying your bills online. Transfer money to accounts, local and global banks. Wire transfer online anywhere in the world. Or send money to friends or family using Buddy Payment. E-payments, the swift, simple, and secure way of transferring money. Welcome home.
I want the best for my family, so every meal has to be perfect. Every bite has to say, There's no doubt in my mind that the best in frozen meats and vegetables has to come from the Country Cold Store. Hams, turkeys, sausages, beef, pork, chicken. I just don't know my family is in safe hands. Thank you, Country Cold Store, for being there for us for the past 40 years.
The Country Cold Store, providing the best in frozen meats and vegetables since 1969.
Believe in our strength, we'll stand by you. Protection from all perils, big and small. Reassurance we get, it's so glad to see. Peace of mind, that's our service guarantee. We look after all our family. Yes, we do at every opportunity.
Tillian Group, underwriters of all classes of insurance solutions for your protection and investment. Live well financially.
We have a special challenge to all who decide to come into the room and be a part of EDDIE-FICATION. The person making the most outstandingly relevant comment in keeping with our topic is in for a special prize. On the table is a breakfast for two at Oliver's Restaurant at world-famous 6-star Diamond 5-Diamond Spice Island Beach Resort. Lucky winner must make a reservation and present gift certificate upon arrival at the appointed time to redeem this gift. This will give you a wonderful opportunity to experience great service like you've never experienced it right here in Grenada from a business that is locally owned, locally managed, locally staffed, and locally trained. A true symbol of our national independence, Spice Island Beach Resort.
Eddie Frederick has got it all. Inspiration, motivation, great advice, and biting opinion pieces as only Eddie Frederick can deliver. Eddie Frederick has got it all.